Hey, I'm Brad Miller, and here with Jason Medford, and we are walking a spiritual path. And today we're going to talk about not all the fun things that you might do, seeing dead people and all that kind of stuff, the love and light and all that kind of stuff that they talk about all the time when it comes to spirituality. Today we're going to talk about something that I don't really think anybody else people really talk about actually. And so I think it's really important that we talk about it today. And that is the work that nobody sees. I think that's the stuff that you do um, for yourself, the stuff that you do when no one else is around, the stuff that goes on in your head and your heart and everywhere else. Um,
Yeah, and it's
but
just
has the biggest impact, I think,
yeah,
on your spiritual evolution and growth.
yeah, because it's not something that anybody's going to pat you on the back for and say, "Good job,
Mhm.
Brad. Good job, Jason. I'm so proud of you for doing that." Because people are never going to know that you're actually doing it, right? But it's because it's behind the scenes, and we'll give you some real examples because, well, this is what just happened to us in the last half an hour. Okay. And I'm just, we're just gonna be real and raw with it, and because I'm no angel, I'm not perfect, I'm still learning, right? Um, but after we finish recording the last episode, I get up, I go to the toilet because I need to do that as I'm getting a little older, and I come back, and Brad is sitting there in kind of a pentative sort of mode. And I kind of knew what was going on. I knew something was coming in for him. So I wasn't like, "Hey, Brad, I'm back. How you doing, man?" I
I mean,
just
that's
kind of,
probably not how you want to come back from the toilet anyway. Like, hey, man, it was a great one. I feel, that's
woo wee, right?
yeah,
Well,
it was like, with like a leader word, like we did a whole, there was bubbles. It was great.
oh,
Like,
that's
no,
great.
like that's
Well,
usually
anyway, I
not
could
the,
report back on that, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Right.
not
So,
today. That's another
not today.
episode. If you're in,
Yeah.
no.
So I saw that Brad was kind of, it looked like he was kind of receiving some downloads. He was sitting there contemplative, right? So I gave it a little bit of time and was like, so how's it going? After a little while, and he started talking about, and for the next couple minutes, there were things that were kind of coming through to Brad about what we probably need to do different on the podcast, right? And they were just words, they were just things, and again, we wrote down and we're working on doing a little bit different. But that came on, right? And so then we started talking about, okay, well, what does this phrase mean? What do we think? What does that mean that we need to do different,
Mhm.
going forward? What does that mean? Because often when things like that come in, it's only a few words or a little phrase, and then we have to figure out what it means, right? So we did that for a few minutes, and then we probably spent 20 minutes talking about what does that mean? What do we need to do different, right? Because then
Mhm.
we started trying to recapitulate and understand, what does this guidance mean for us? What do we need to do different, right?
Mhm.
Because that's an important part. And a lot of times when we receive things, we just kind of discount them or let them go or think we know what they mean without actually recapitulating on them, which is an important thing, right? And so we're sitting there talking, and I don't know, Brad's sharing some stuff, I'm sharing some stuff. I don't even remember exactly what we all talked about. And all of a sudden, Brad goes, "The work nobody sees." And we're like, boom, that's the
Boom.
next episode. Boom, that's the next episode that we've got to record today. Okay, so
Mhm.
we're trying to peel back the covers a little bit too, because a lot of people out in this space, I don't know if it's from an ego perspective or what it is. I'm hoping it's not that, but
You
a
know,
lot of a
I think
lot.
some of it is that people are the ego part is a little bit of it. People want to say, look how advanced I am, look how I'm doing. And so there's some of that. But I think a lot of the times it's that they just they're naive about it, about the path. I think it's the naivete that's doing it. That they think that maybe they're further on than they are. They think that they have these things figured out when they really don't. And so that along with the ego and wanting to be like, hey, look what I've done. Look where I am.
Yeah, kind of leads into it. Hmm. So we're going to be more real and raw with you.
Case in point, we just did it right there. There's an
We just did
example.
it right
Like
there.
that's what we're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, because most of, at least in my experience, what I am learning, a lot of the work that is most important for myself and for this world and galaxies is stuff that people never see. And so, again, if you think about, and I'm not by any means trying to say I'm a master or anything like this, but I just kind of set a context, right? Is if you think about a lot of the people from history who have been considered holy ones or masters, um, many of them were hermits. You never
Mhm.
saw what they were doing. They never interacted with people. They didn't have a big YouTube channel and millions of followers or the equivalent of the day. Um, they just kind of went around and did their thing, but they did a lot of things in silence and by themselves, things that people, would never actually see,
Mhm.
right? And a lot of those things are the things that really matter the most, right? Um,
Mhm.
so I don't know
Yeah, no, I'm just laughing at the
what.
image of the Buddha doing YouTube, like I,
Hi there,
talking to all his peeps.
I'm Siddhartha Buddha, and I'm here today to talk to you. No, right? And a lot of times too, it's the simple things. It's the phrases, just like we just got, right? The teachings that kind of came through to Brad as we're sitting here talking. They're 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 things that may not even make sense, right? Like one of them was get real. What does get real mean? Right? So we sat there and we tried to talk about what does that
Mhm.
actually mean, right? And a lot of times in the ancient texts and other things like that, they're often very simple phrases that we have to then dig into and figure out what they mean for us. And a lot of times it's things that no one except ourselves is going to see in the physical, right? Obviously, the spiritual and everything going on outside and everything that's being recorded in the Akashic records and everything else, nothing goes unnoticed by the universe. But people in the 3D probably aren't going to notice what it is that we're doing.
Mhm. Well, and plus everything has many different layers to it. So Get Real has multitude of different layers and meanings depending on the person who's hearing it, depending on their circumstances. I mean, if that came out tomorrow, it would probably mean something completely different to us. But in this context, it had a particular meaning or something that kind of struck us as a connection here with this. And so it's like you said, there's these simple phrases, simple things in there, and they don't all mean the same thing to each person. And they are like the onion. So you've got one level and you think you got it, and then you peel back the onion, the layer, and then there's another layer. There's something else. It goes deeper, or it has maybe a slightly different way that you can apply it. And then you peel back another layer, and oh look, there's more to this than I realized. And by the time you keep on peeling layers, at the end of the day, you realize I don't know anything. Like there's just so much to here. There's no way that I could ever know everything there is to know about this. Um, And I think for some people, especially professionals who are trained to be analytical and evidence-based and logical, that's kind of scary. The thought of at some point you're going to be like, this makes no sense and I can't ever know. Like, because we want to know, like, we want answers. That's professionals often are in the business of answers. Can I do this? Is this legal? What do the numbers say? We want answers, but there aren't answers.
No, and I think it's because as you're saying that, right, I'm sitting here smiling because it scares us,
Mhm.
right? It scares us not to know, especially when we have been taught that's what we're supposed to do, right? And
Yep.
so that's why, again, a lot of things on the spiritual path are not logical, only because they probably don't align with the belief and indoctrination that we've been taught, right? For nothing else, but I think I've started to catch a little bit of glimpses of this sometimes is when we really can let go and realize we don't have to understand.
Mhm.
We just have to do. We have to do the doing. We have to do the not doing. And the not doing is some of uh, what the work nobody sees is kind of about. Maybe we'll talk about that. Maybe we won't. We'll see where this goes. But
Maybe you'll
what
see
did
it, maybe you won't.
maybe you won't. But to me, what there, even though it scares us not to know, I've experienced certain things in my life so far that it is actually freeing and
Mhm.
so peaceful when I can accept that I don't have to know and I don't have to control it.
Yep.
And I can just allow it to be, let go, let it be.
Oh yeah.
Because
That
because those times are like exhilarating when you can actually feel it. Now I don't feel it all the time, but I have little glimpses of it and I can still remember those glimpses,
Mhm.
which helps keep propelling me forward for the next time that glimpse is going to happen. When is it going to happen? I don't know. Could happen in the middle of this recording. It
It's
may
been known
not
to
be
happen.
it
Yeah.
may not be for 5 years. I don't know, right? But
But you don't have to know.
I don't have to know. I know when I know, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to know right now, but I'll know when I know.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's one of those little things that nobody sees, right? It's a changing in our perspective. It's a changing in our belief structure. But nobody around us is going to see that, at least physically. But it
Right.
takes a lot of work. It's hard to do, right? It's hard to do when the
Yeah.
brain wants to take over. And it's like, I've got this, practice that I'm doing now of connecting my brain to my heart and my heart to the earth to be able to get myself from my head to my heart, right? Because again, we've got the three brains, head, heart, gut, and to do more from my heart center instead of from my head center.
Mhm.
But I'll be damned if during the day I'm thinking, right, that it's my heart, and all of a sudden I go, oh, that's my brain again. Okay, get back to the heart. Come on, come on, come on, right? Um, but those little exercises that I do during the day, nobody sees them except me,
Mhm.
right? And I'm only sharing it here because we've got to somehow share some of the things we're doing and some of the stories that we have, only to share what we're doing to help other people see it and figure out what it means for them, right? We're not here to brag. I hope that that's never the energy that I bring to this because we're not selling anything. We're not, none of that. We're just here talking and hoping that the people who listen feel the energy maybe helps prompt them, helps them realize they're not crazy, right?
Mhm.
Um, and some things like that. Maybe we go there because that's one experience I had this last week. I traveled
Mm.
um, because Brad was asking me about it before we started. Hey, how was
Yep.
your trip? All this kind of stuff, right? And
Yep.
so, do you remember what I told you, Brad?
It was interesting.
It was interesting, and I kind of left it at that, right? But
Hmm.
I think the idea of you're not crazy is one of those things that hopefully those of you that are listening can see that you're not crazy, right? Is I was visiting out of state, some family, some other people, and for a long time, I have received certain, let's say this right, suspicions is not the right word. I have felt or known some things about certain people that I wanted to dismiss because surely that cannot be what is. Okay. Because I didn't want to believe it.
Right. You must have been
And
mistaken.
I must have been mistaken, but it's happened over and over again, right? This has happened for years. I keep getting these senses, if you will, of things that are going on or people's intentions or other things that are happening. And I keep wanting to discount it because honestly, if I talk about it out loud, I'd seem like I'm a real loony. But my partner was with me this time. So she was experiencing the same things that I was. And about halfway, three-quarters of the way through the trip, all of a sudden we had a discussion. And she said, you know what? I came in this trip with an open mind, right? I purposely didn't tell her anything about some of the situations, purposely, because I didn't want to jade anything.
Hmm.
And like I said, about three-quarters of the way through, she said, I now understand what you're saying, and this is the sense I'm getting. And guess what? It lined up with me. And some of the stuff even went a little further
Hmm.
than I wanted to go. And I'm like, shit, you're right. You're right. And so again, it's here I thought I was crazy, crazy, but not wanting to believe it until
Hmm.
somebody independent kind of gets hit with the same thing, right?
Hmm.
And so there's a lot of benefit in having some of that to realize that, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're seeing, what you're not seeing, what you're smelling, what you're, all these different ways that things from the universe come, that you're not crazy because there's those of us that are out there that are experiencing the same thing. And even though the rest of the world might think it's crazy, it's not. The rest of the world is crazy, honestly. Uh, but that's, and
Yeah.
again, does anybody see that work? No. Nobody would even know about it if I didn't just share it right here, except for my partner. And again, I'm keeping confidences, and we're not going to talk about details because we don't need to go there. But those kinds of things happening, right? And me then integrating and processing what happened during the week, right?
Hmm.
Because it wasn't just me understanding the situation better, but it was me actually having to do some things energetically because of the situation for
Hmm.
myself and for others, right? And
Yeah.
but again,
Let's
nobody sees that.
Right. No, and that's actually a really good point and something that I don't think that we've ever talked about. And honestly, I don't know if I've heard anyone tell about this. They've said mentioned it, but no one's ever exactly said how do you integrate stuff? Like everyone says, yeah, you got to do this, and you have to integrate it. I've had this experience, or I have something happen, and I need to integrate it. And no one ever says what that means. How do you integrate something into your life? How do you, like, what exactly is that?
Oh, the episodes we could go on for that.
It's true, but for purposes of today, the down and dirty is.
Yeah, you have to do something to integrate, especially, uh, boy, just got hit with something. Uh, Deeply evocative experiences. We need to integrate everything, but especially deeply evocative experiences, things that are kind of earth-shattering, really have to be integrated. But there's a lot of different ways that one can integrate things. Okay. Um, get real, right? Okay. Get real. um, how much I can share publicly and not. There were some things that I experienced where individuals and entities were trying to attach or do some things to me spiritually that I had to protect against, that I had to clean up. Because if you think about, if I sometimes we find ourselves brushing up against people that are covered in mud, let's say, just to use an analogy. If somebody comes up and touches me with muddy hands, if they run into me and they're all covered in mud,
Mhm.
some of that mud is going to come off onto me. And so I need to do something to clean that mud off.
Mhm.
I need to, if it has caused a distortion in my energy field, I need to not only clean it off, I need to fix it, right? Like maybe it's more than just mud that needs to come off. Maybe they scratched my skin and I need to put, some kind of medicine and a band-aid on it.
Mhm.
And I'm just using these as an example, but it's kind of so everybody listening can kind of understand
Mhm.
what it's like spiritually in a way that way. So how do you integrate that, right? And again, there's different ways to do this. Some things that I do, and a lot of it you just have to feel into what you need to do,
Mhm.
right? Because each situation is slightly different. I don't do the same things all the time. I have some go-tos that I use
Mhm.
often. Uh, but it kind of varies a little bit. And so I'll give you some examples from this. So I talk about washing my hands, right?
You do. You wash your hands a lot, it sounds like, from what you tell us, but
Well, I do and I don't, right? It's like I do it for particular reasons or at particular times. Obviously, if I need it from a physical standpoint,
sure. Dig in the garden
but
or something. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, right. But this is an example where again, if I encounter someone that I feel has kind of thrown some mud my direction and I need to clean up,
Energetic
as
mud. Yeah.
energetic mud, as I'm washing my hands, right? So I'm doing a physical act, and that physical act is linked, right, in the ethers as well. So what we do on this earth is also other places, right? So
As above, as below, so below.
so
Yep.
so as yep, exactly right. As below, so above, as above, so below.
Mhm.
So as I'm washing my hands and I'm doing this physical act, and I'm saying to myself something like, I wash and cleanse myself of any energy that no longer, that does not serve me. I release and let go of any attachments that may have come, right? And I am imagining cleaning not just my hands, but cleaning my spirit. And so, as an example, if let's just, I'm just making up examples here, but let's say somebody came up and put their hand on my shoulder,
Mhm.
and I didn't like the way it felt,
Feel heavy and yeah.
and they were trying to do something, and so usually I do not allow most people to physically touch me for a reason. But let's say that sometimes somebody kind of like sneaks up and does something to you. So I would actually place attention on that part of my body as well, and act again as I'm washing my hands. I'm imagining myself cleaning that part of my light body as well. There's maybe a little dark spot there. I'm cleaning it, sending light and love to it, and cleaning it back up, getting rid of it, right? So that's one way that you can kind of, integrate. Sometimes I make certain sounds, certain
Mhm.
actions with my body that do certain things as well, right? Now, so that's kind of related to maybe this particular experience, or one of the things that I experienced
Cleaning
this last
yourself.
week.
Yeah.
So I was cleaning myself as ways to integrate. I also will wrap up energy that no longer serves me, and I will send it places where I can't say, right? Because you can't tell that, but you can actually wrap up energy and give it to other, because there's no good or bad energy either, right? What may no longer serve me
Mhm.
may serve elsewhere, right?
Sure.
But with the integration as well, so when you're cleansing, you don't want to leave a vacuum. And so whatever you are cleaning or getting rid of, you also need to replace with something. And so that's why, from an integration perspective, too, um, we've talked about this before, but haven't really shared it as an integration thing, is when you're trying to transmute or move from an emotion or a state like anger or
Mhm.
shame into gratitude,
Mhm.
right? What you can kind of say to yourself, that's an integrative process. And again, you can do physical things, you can just think it in your mind, you can say it out loud, but something like, I release the shame I feel about this, and I replace the shame with gratitude for
Mhm.
the learning and the understanding that I had by going through that experience. So you're releasing, and you are not leaving the vacuum open, you're replacing it with love or gratitude as well, right?
Mhm.
So that's a way that you can kind of integrate. Sometimes, the integration as well is just sitting and recapitulating or contemplating. Sometimes it can be doing things like creating a mandala, doodling, drawing, some physical,
Playing a musical instrument. I do
action.
that sometimes.
Playing a musical instrument is a way of doing it as well. Anything that you feel like, to be able to kind of get you back grounded and to integrate, what it is that you need to integrate. And again, it's going to be different each time. It's going to be different for each kind of experience, right? And it's like, it's it also takes a lot more if it's something that's deeply evocative, like uh, alien ET encounters. That's something that's
Sure.
for a human being that that's taught that ETs don't exist. That's earth shattering. That's paradigm shifting, right? And so there
Mhm.
are things like that that require some different ways to go through. It's more than hey, I'm replacing the shame I feel about this with something else, right? But there's and I think it's interesting that you bring that up because there's not a lot of people who uh, do the integration, and especially for people because I'm seeing this with people who do plant medicine.
Mhm.
You have to be very very careful, but there has to be a preparation, the experience, but there has to be integration. And so if you don't have the integration of those things that ended up happening, um, it can actually be very damaging for you. And it's in a way kind of like we talked before about how the sunlight, the plants get the sunlight,
Mhm.
and they turn that into chlorophyll and whatever else they need, right? That ends up then coming to us in
Last
that form
episode we talked about that. Yeah.
as we eat the plant and other things like
Hmm.
that. Well, that's an example of transmutation and integration of something too, right? So, and again, as we're bombarded with energies from throughout the cosmos, right? We can choose to integrate that, learn from it, not let it sit certain places, or we can just be like, oh, I'm so fried, kind of thing, which some people do. It's like, no, get up, integrate it, right? One of the things that I say to myself pretty much every day is I receive, integrate, and transmute the energies easily. I don't have to know how it's doing it. I just have
Hmm.
to place attention and awareness on it and allow my light being in my body to do what it already needs, what it already knows to do. Just like if I got a cut, I place awareness on it of, oh, I bless you, this little cut. I put my ointment and band aid on it. And now I'm going to allow it to do what it already knows how to
Hmm.
do.
Right.
I don't have to sit there every 10 minutes and go, are you healing? Are you healing?
Right. Or tell
No.
her, here's what you do. The white blood cells have to go here. Like, yeah, you don't fuck.
You don't do that.
Mhm.
But you do have to place some awareness on it. You have to do your little bit of doing or not doing, and then it kind of works out. So
Yeah.
I don't know, is that answering, or is that just
It does. Yeah.
confusing?
Yeah.
Or
So to
it's
summarize that for people, because I think we went to a lot of different kind of details with that one, but to kind of get it down, I think the idea of integration is kind of taking the experience, maybe it's a knowing, maybe it's a shift in perspective, whatever it might be that you've got the lesson, whatever, and applying it. And um I mean that's kind of the best way, get the best synonym I think I can think of is kind of apply it to yourself. And it may be, like you said, it may be sitting with it. I mean, I know for me, a lot of times, a lot of things that I take, the lessons that I get, integration requires me or just has me sitting there. Maybe, just in silence. Or maybe I'll have, some meditation music going on or something, but just allowing whatever has happened, the experience, allowing my body, not my mind, but my body to process the experience and to kind of take in from it what it needs, the lessons it needs to learn from it. And trying to keep as best as I can, because it's tough, but try to keep my brain, my head out of it. Because the head, the brain is going to try to come up with a logical, rational explanation for whatever happened, or it'll try to rationalize something away. Like, oh, well, that you didn't actually see that. Or oh well, that person must not be this. That must be something else you're seeing, because you didn't want to believe a certain thing about somebody. Um, your brain will do that because it's hooked directly to your ego. It wants to help you with survival and all these kind of things. It's carrying out its programming, right? This is meant to do. But the lessons, they are, when on a spiritual level, are, I think, kind of absorbed and learned by your body. And so for me, it's allowing that to happen. And like you said, it could be sitting there in silence. It could be play a musical instrument. Sometimes I'll pull out a drum and I'll work and I'll play a drum for a little bit. Um, until I feel like I'm good and I've done it. I will, we talked about in the past where I draw medicine chords every morning. And I get lessons and I get things there. And sometimes it's making it, something just kind of clicks. Like, oh yeah, I totally get where that happened. But again, this integration, this application, these learning, these are things that nobody really talks about because it's not the rainbows and the unicorns and the butterflies, the love and the light. And I know earlier on we did the Love Light Donkey Dick episode,
One
um,
of the greatest titles of all
which
time, in my
is,
opinion.
but it kind of went to this point where everybody talks about the good stuff. They want to talk about how wonderful this is and how they share the love and the light and all these great things that they say on exterior to other people out loud. But most of the spiritual stuff that we're talking about, the path that we're walking, isn't out there. It's not standing on a street corner and handing out flowers. It's it's not putting out the YouTube channel but from the Buddha, like preaching to the masses. It's the stuff inside you where you take what you're learning and actually absorb it, apply it to what you do, to your behaviors, to your actions, um, to your identity, to who you are at a core spiritual level. Like that's the integration. That's the important stuff. That's what people don't see. But that is the spiritual path.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it's, people aren't going to know because they don't see it. And so I guess we have to share a little bit about it, just so people know, and it's okay. Most of the work that you do on this path, nobody's going to know that you're doing it except you and the universe, right? You're not going to get credit for it, which is okay because if you're on this path, you shouldn't be doing it from an ego perspective of look at me, who am I,
Right?
that I'm
There's
so
not an
great.
extra credit
There's
thing
no
in
extra,
school where
yeah,
you
no, no, right? But yeah, there's going to be days when you don't feel good. You wake up with a headache. For me, sometimes I vomit just out of nowhere. Just the
yep.
way that things are working in my body, I get aches and pains different places. I don't talk about it because I'm not going to place any more awareness on it because again, I
Where your attention
receive
is.
I receive and transmit, energies easily. And so I let it go through fast.
Yep.
Same thing with, you can integrate these things as fast or as slow as you want to do. If you want to hold on to some embarrassing moment and continue to feel shame for that for the next 20 or 30 years, well, you can do it. It's up to you, right? If you want to bring up something from the past, then
Mhm.
you can do it. In fact, I will tell you that, one of the people that I was talking with this week, and I don't think they're ever going to listen to this podcast, but if they do, it doesn't matter, brought up an issue and tried to shame me from something that I did over 50 years ago as a toddler. Are you fucking kidding me? So that person is still holding on to something from over 50 years ago and trying to hold it over my head. Well, it doesn't affect me. I let that go a long time ago, right?
Mhm.
Uh, but it's interesting, right? And so again, we can choose to integrate as fast or as slow as we want to. If you want to
Hmm.
hold on to it, hold on to it. I like to just get her done as quick as I can.
Get
And
it done, move on.
if that means a little bit more pain in the short term, then okay, so be it.
Pull the
But
band-aid off.
pull the band-aid off. Every time I see it, I try to attack it head on. Um, I don't always do that, right? Because I'm still
We're
human,
human. Yeah, exactly.
but I'm getting better at. I don't want to be. And this is where again people will talk about this. Some of these energies, when they settle in your physical body, if they're not integrated, they will create dis-ease,
Yep.
which translates into a disease in your body usually. And so also just the quicker that we can process it and move through it, the better it is for us. And like I
Yep.
said, there's so maybe we need to talk more about integration because like I said, there's a lot of different ways you can do it and try to come up with some different examples of things that we're specifically going through
Mhm.
without sharing too much of the details that are private. Um,
And they don't matter. I mean, they're not relevant to other people,
yeah,
the specific stuff. Like we're sharing kind of the generalities of what we're doing, so that other people can see what what goes on. Like I said, the behind the scenes stuff, how the movie's made, how the sausage is made. Um, but you don't the details aren't relevant to you. So that's why I know a lot of times it's like, we don't know how much can we share, or try to get not to the details. It's because they don't matter. Like it doesn't matter to anyone else but us. So
yeah. So the work nobody sees, as Brad said to begin with, is probably some of the most important work that we can do. Um,
mhm.
because I think it's funny. It just reminds me of there's an old saying, for weightlifting and people that like to, have a fit body is,
Silly
you'll,
people, I don't
yeah, silly people. No,
know.
no. But what's funny is the ab buster workout, do this workout and you'll have these great abs and buy my sit up machine and you'll blah, 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 whatever, right?
Mhm.
And so then you get people that'll go to the gym and working out in front of everybody else around, and pumping iron, doing all this stuff, right? But the funny thing is abs are not made in the gym. Abs are made in the kitchen. And people are like, "What?" Yeah. Abs are made not made in the gym. Abs are made in the kitchen, right? Your abdominal muscles, your abs. What do you mean? Right? Well, you can have the strongest abs underneath a big old fat layer. And believe me, I've been there. I had nice abs underneath this layer of
Oh,
fat.
we all do. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Um, because, your tummy fat is based on what you eat, not how you exercise. Right. But when you go to the gym and you tell people, yeah, I went to the gym and I did 500 crunches yesterday. You know, well, that's not what we're talking about, right? But if you're at home, right, in your own home, eating the things you're supposed to eat, and all of a sudden your tummy fat just melts away, people are going to go, oh my gosh, Jason, what happened to you? What are you doing? Well, I'm eating better. Well, nobody's going to go, yay, Jason, you're eating better. They might do that for the 500 crunches, right? And so, but what's the most important work? It's that work that nobody sees. They'll see the results, but they
right.
won't see the sacrifice and the consistency that it actually took to get there. And
Yeah.
that's what most people don't have is they have a hard time being consistent when nobody's watching because you have to
Mhm.
be self disciplined. You have to become a disciple, which is another word often used in religion and spirituality, but you have to discipline and disciple yourself to get the end results. And nobody's going to see what you're doing day to day. They'll see the
Right.
results, but they won't see the day to day, which is the most important thing that we can do.
Right. Yeah. And getting so focused on the day-to-day stuff, or the so focused on letting people see or what they can't see. Again, that goes back to ego.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
Yeah.
every time that we want somebody to give us credit for something we did, we've crossed over into ego,
Yeah.
and we don't even realize it. We're thinking, no, we just want some
Validation.
validation, right? But if we truly love ourselves, we don't need validation anyway. Now, I'm not saying I don't feel like I need validation from
Well,
time to time.
yeah,
I'm just
no.
saying that's the truth. If you feel like you have to be validated or somebody else needs to tell you that you're good enough for you to feel good about yourself,
Mhm.
then you don't really love yourself enough. And we all end up in that situation.
Right. And then you know what you need to work on. And that's the case.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, we could continue on this path for another 3 hours, so we probably should wrap this episode up here.
Exactly.
Um, like I said, there's a lot
Exactly.
of places I think that this can could go to, and a lot of things that I think topics that'll spiral out of this perhaps down the road for future episodes. But the important thing today is, we're talking about the work nobody sees. It's the stuff that it's not glamorous. It's not public facing. It's not the stuff that you get celebrated for doing. But it's what actually gets you the results, you know.
Yep. Yep.
And that's the stuff that you got to do. That's the work you got to put in to get there. You know, it's the 5 o'clock gyms that nobody sees you because no one else is up at that point, but you're there. It's
Yep.
stuff like that. So,
Exactly.
all right.
So with that, we're gonna wrap up today, but you know, do not fear, do not worry that really the work that nobody sees that you're doing, that you're consistently doing every day, I promise you, is making a huge difference. I've seen it in my life. Again, uh, I feel it. I feel it,
I've seen it in your life too from the time I've
yeah,
known you. So,
and I know it's important to just go out and do, start figuring out what it is that you can start doing consistently, that'll help get you further along, what you can do to try to integrate some of these things maybe that are there, um, and just keep plodding along on the path, right? As we celebrate you, even if nobody else is giving you kudos, we know the hard work that you're putting in. And so keep going. Keep going.
get her done.
Get her done. And we'll see you on the next episode, everybody. Have a great
See
week.
you guys.